Hi guys, welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a dynamic graphing framework, essentially. We might create one, but that's not really the purpose. And again, you're going to be provided with files. So if you're watching these videos, your goal should be to learn stuff, and this is going to be a good learning experience for you. But you will come out with some really good information. So what we decided on is that we're going to have a group selector and an event type selector. And those are going to be based off of our whatever's in our event list and whatever's in our group list. And these could be anything. Pick two things that you want to aggregate information by. Doesn't matter. For us, they're the events and they're the groups that we have. So let me go back to the team plan. Let's just select a couple of these. So we have U18 and maybe we have all. Imagine that these are going to be picked from a drop-down menu. But the purpose of this is to set up our graphs in a dynamic graph framework so that we can execute our plan where we pick a test, essentially in any given category or any test that we want, and we might only have 1, 2, 3, 4, we might only have like 5 or 6 graphs here or on this page, but we want to be able to pick which ones those are, and those may change. So, and if you don't want to do that, then you can just use this, create graphs, and you'll be able to create any graph that you want after doing this from any of your data. So I'm going to call this sheet graph org for graph organization, and let's type in group here and let's type in event here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in the group and the event that we have selected. So I'm going to go equals for the group. This is just for our organizational purposes. I'll do that. That's the group that we have selected. And for the event, I'll go equals the event that we have selected, which can be all or in season or training camp or whatnot. Now, in our team plan, I decided that I want these graphs to be a positional breakdown of whatever the metric is that we select. Yeah, these could be anything. But for me, if I'm looking at, for example, the team view, I'm looking at individuals and I'm looking at positions and potentially groups and how they compare as an overview. And then if I see something awry with a given person or positional group, I want the opportunity to go in and maybe assess that person on an individual player level, which will be our next kind of component of this, or just further evaluate that position group compared with others. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to type in all of our positions. So we have all, and we don't need all, but I think it's nice to show the data for all positions if needed, just in case you want it. And we got forward, defenseman, and goalie. But I want to make sure that these are spelled the same way that my positional groups are spelled. I'm just going to go to my data, take a look. We got forward, defenseman, goalie. Okay, those are our positions. Forward, defenseman, goalie. Great. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to copy from my data all of our metrics that we have here. Every single one. And we're going to be able to, this will give us the opportunity to create a graph for any one of these. And you can always reset this. It's not a big deal. And I'm even including date and participation status. Some of these things just don't even make sense. I'll copy. I'll go to our graph org. And up here at the top, I'm gonna paste the values in here. Now, all we have is just a list of all our metrics. We got a lot of them. Maybe we want a graph for this. Maybe we want a graph for this. Maybe, I don't know, it could be anything. But I'm just providing a framework to do this. Now, what a smarter way to do this would be, in my opinion, is instead of copying and pasting, I would do equals my data and the first thing in my data set, which aside from the player. And what that's going to do is it's going to do the same thing that I typed in, and I'm going to drag this across, all the way across to my last metric. And all we're doing here, notice everything stayed the same. It's just referring to something else. And why this is important is because we're going to use these in calculations And these need to be consistent with our column headers. So if I change, let's say this is called participation status. If I change this to be PS in my table, and if I go here, now it's PS here. And we kind of want a systematic approach to this. So that if we make a change, this is our motherboard. If we make a change here, we want everything to kind of accommodate for that. So I'm going to call this back. I'm going to go participation status again. And we're going to use this information as part of our, well, we're not going to use it as part of our equation, I don't think, but it's important to recognize how this works. Oops, how do I? So now we're going to create some equations. And one thing to recognize is that we need to accommodate, we want data here for each of these positions to accommodate for what we pick in our team plan, because that'll drive our graphs. So there are two components to this, and one of them is driven because we have this all component for events and groups. So we need to do something different for when things are all than when they're just a specific group or event that we have associated with our data set per person, because we don't have an all group or all position for each person. So let's identify a couple different scenarios. We can have the event be all, so I'm just going to write this in. Event all, group all. That would mean one thing. We could have event all, group is a specific is a group, or we can have group all, and event is a specific event in our data set. So what we need to do in our calculation is accommodate for these three different scenarios. And it might actually be four if neither of those things are true. So the first one, let's do the group as all, and the event is the event. So the first part of my formula here is going to be equals if, or maybe I'll start with the positions because that'll be better. So equals if, or let's do it once, equals average ifs. We're going to get an average. And what I want is, let me start over. Equals if, and we need two things to be true. If this group is all, so if B1 is equal to, and we don't want it just to be all, we want it to be what our drop-down list says is all, which is going to be governed by what's in our reference list. I know this is hard to envision right now. This, K2, reference K2. So if that group that we pick is with the first thing in our group list, which is whatever we term all groups, if that's true, comma, and also, oops, let's go back to our graph org. I don't need the graph org. And this here and maybe I just put in graph org for all of these in case we move this formula around. Graph org. So if this equals all and this is not equal to, which is the event, and that is not equal to all, or whatever the all is in our event list. And let's lock that in. And quote, if those two things are true, then what am I going to do? I'm going to get the average ifs, my TBL date, because that's what we're looking at. I want the average date, or whatever that the first column is, which maybe I'll go back to this page so that we can see it. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'll go back here. Average ifs, TBL unsure data date, whatever this is up here. So if those two things are true, I want the average of this, and now because I'm accommodating for all groups, I don't need a group argument, but I do need an event argument because I want it for a specific event, because we are determining that the event is not all, so it coincides with a specific event. I'm going to say TBL underscore data. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say date, or whatever that is, comma, is greater than 0. No, let's not do that. Just for, let's say, is not equal to blank, comma, and, oh, sorry, table, data, date, whatever that is, it's not equal to blank. And then we also want TBL data event type is equal to, comma, whatever this event type is in here, and we can lock that in. And the last part of this is that TBL underscore data position, comma, is equal to whatever this position is right here. And I'm going to lock in D, but not, because that's the column, not the row, because I might want to copy this for defensemen and goalies. And I'm going to close the brackets. And I'm going to close it again and click enter. And what this is saying is that this is not true. Whatever we have in here at the top, this is not equal to all, and also, or the combination of this being equal to all and this not being equal to all is not true. But if we change this in our team plan, let's say, so let's go all, and then I'll pick an event. What events do we have? Training camp. I copy that, and let's go to our team plan and paste that in. So we got training camp and we got all. We have some event that isn't all and something in the groups that is all. Now let's go to graph.org. Now our date comes in, or the average date for the forwards. Now before we move forward, my plan is to drag this across. And if I do that right now, we're going to get errors. So I'm going to drag it across. And now you see what's happening here. That is because we didn't lock in certain columns. Now I want to go over column locking. Just like cell locking, you can lock in columns in tables. So when I drag this across, I want the metrics to change to coincide with the next metric on the list. But I don't want the event type to change. I always want the event type to be looking at this. And if I drag this across right now it's everything's staying the same. Like the participation status is changing like I want it to. But now instead of event type, it's position equal to this. And then the next thing over from position, which is group, is equal to this. And that's not what I want. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a colon, open square bracket, event type again, and I'm going to do a double square bracket on that side and a double square bracket on this side, and you'll see it kind of organize itself. Probably an easier way to do this is to do it this way, which I need to do for position 2, is do a square bracket here first, double the square brackets on one side, colon, open square bracket, position, and do 2 square brackets. Now, I'm pretty sure that I'm set up to drag this across. And I'm not going to drag it across the whole way, I'm just going to drag it across a little bit. By the way, this is a date. This number is the number of days past 1-1-1900, which is equal to, if I make it a date, whatever that date is. Taking an average date for the forwards for training camps doesn't really make sense, but I just undid that. Now if I drag this across, let's just get to a couple metrics that matter. Now, because this is a word, this is a word, this is a word, this is a word, and this is a word, it's giving me errors. But look, when we get to the body weight, that looks like a regular body weight value, that looks like a regular height value, etc. So it's working, and we can see that in here, where this is Skinfold's chest, and it should align with Skinfold's chest, and everything else is following suit. Before I do anything here, I'm going to do an if error. But before I do that, we only conquered one scenario. So this is one thing. Now, what if this isn't true? Now we got to accommodate for our next scenario, which is maybe event all, and the group is a specific group. And in that case, we care about the group, but we don't care about the event. So I'm going to hold down Alt and click Enter to separate space. I'm going to copy this here. I'm going to paste it down because we want it to pretty much be exactly the same. Now, we want B1 not equal to reference K2, which means B1 cannot be all, and this has to be all for our next scenario. And the only thing that we change here is instead of event type being equal to B2, we need the group to group, keeping these locked with double square brackets on either side, equal to B1. I'm going to click enter, or let me close this off. And I'll click enter. Now, theoretically, if we change this group to a group and this to all, this should change. Let me drag this over a little bit. And I'm going to do that. So let's go to our team plan. Let's change this to U18, which is a group that we have. And let's change this to all. If I go here, this changed. So 191.7667. So let's say 190. Here, let's make this easier on ourselves. 191.8, and I'm going to change this back to all in training camp. Remember 191.8. I'll even write it here. 191.8. Now if I go back here and I say this is all, and this is training camp, I go back here. Now we're at 92.8. So there's a difference in weights between those two scenarios. It's working so far. And we have one last condition to look out for. I'm going to erase this again. So we got 2 of the 3 done. Comma, I'm going to do a comma, Alt, Enter. Take this and copy it again, and we'll accommodate for our third scenario. So the first was the event being all. The second was the group being all. Now what if, oh, we might need one more. What if both are all? So if both of them are all, let's do that now. So if group B1, if this is all, and this one is also all, now we don't even care about the group. So I can remove this. So now, let me just close this off again. Oops. Let me just make sure that I did this right. I want the date, and the date is not equal to blank, and the position is equal to that. What did I do wrong here? Make sure I have commas in the right places. Oh, here we go. So let's remove that parenthesis and let's add it here. Click enter. Now, let's drag this across again. Now, if both of these are all, it should change. So I'm going to go back to team plan, change this to all. And again, 92.25. That's different than the other one too. So now we have 3 of the 4 scenarios working. And now let's do the last one. Alt, enter, and let me make this bigger. This is our last condition. So, oops. So if none of these are true, if none of these things are true, then we're going to double down. We want to know about the event and the group. So I'm going to copy this one because it's more relevant. And I'll enter and paste it. So now if this is not equal to all, which is reference K2, and this is also not equal to all, then we want whatever the metric is not equal to blank when the group is equal to B1, and also, comma, I'm just going to copy this from here, the event is equal to B2. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste in that argument right here. And also the position being equal to the position. And I'm just going to close this off. And at a certain point, I'll get a black parenthesis, and I'll click enter. And it works. Well, we don't know that yet. Let's drag it across. Let's type in 192.25. And let's change these to 2 different things. It'll be some group and some event. So maybe it's U18 training camp. I'm going to go back in here. Let's go U18. Go training camp. Now I'm going to go back to my graph. And now it's 92 on the dot. It's different. Let's add some decimals just in case. Yeah, it's 92.00. So we got something that's working. That's great. I'm going to remove these, remove this. And now I like to wrap everything in an if error. So if there's an error, I want something to happen. And I don't know what that something is yet, but we can always do a find replace. So if error, if there's an error, I want it to be consistent. I don't know whether it should be blank or NA, but I think that NA works better in line charts. So for right now, I'm going to make it NA, even though it looks ugly. Now, I'm going to copy this formula, paste it here. I'm going to paste it here. Now notice when we look at this, and if I click on this, now we're looking at the goalie position, not the forward position. So if I click on this, it's looking at forwards. If I'm looking at this, it's looking at defensemen, because this is for each position. And now I can copy this and paste it to the all group, but we get an NA. That's because there's no position called all. So one thing that we can do is we can remove, so let's copy this, comma, position equals this, whatever this is. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it right here. We just need to replace this with blank for the all group. So I'm going to select all and a couple of other things. I'm going to go to replace. Find what? We want to find where we talk about it being the position being equal to something. And now we don't care about it, so let's replace it with blank. I'll replace all. Now if you notice in here, there's nothing about position anywhere, and when I click on it, it's not looking at any position. Now, finally, what we can do is we can grab all these guys. Well, first I can remove this because we don't need it. Drag all these guys and just drag them across all the way to the end. And what we should have is we should have values for every position for every metric. And I went a little bit overboard on 2 of them. So now what these metrics are saying, maybe I just holistically take everything and make it 2 decimals for now. And you can format it however you want. It doesn't really matter. You're only interested in certain metrics, and you will probably want to format each individually. But what this is telling us is that for all players in the U18 group during training camp, the average overall score was 68.62. For forwards, it was this. For defensemen, it was this. And for goalies, it was this. And we can see that if we click on this, the average score overall revised is right underneath the score overall revised area. So now what we can do is we can create positional graphs on any of these metrics. Let's do one. Body weight's pretty simple. I'm going to select these 3 things. Insert, I don't know, a bar chart. And let me close this up. And this is just an example. This is not what we're going to do, but I just want to show you how to create a chart. So you can select a couple metrics, create a chart. Now this says 1, 2, 3 on the bottom. That's because we don't have x-axis labels selected properly. And go to select data under the horizontal category axis. Let's select our labels for the bottom. I want these 3. Click OK. My series is fine. Maybe, I can name it if I want. Maybe it's body weight. Click OK. Doesn't really matter. Click OK. And now we can format this a little bit. I'm just going to do it quickly in a way that I think looks better than this. You probably don't care. And I'll go over one cool trick. So when I format a bar chart, I always put this at 0. And now this gap width is how fat the bars are essentially. And I'll do, let's go 50. They're pretty fat. And maybe we want to know what the actual body weight values are, and we don't even want to see, I don't want to see these lines. I can click on these, right click, and add some data labels. And maybe I want these inside the bars, or maybe not, but let's say I want them inside the bars. I can right click, format data labels, and I can put them inside the base, inside the end. Let's go inside the base. Inside the end looks better, but depending on the scale, it can get all messed up. So we'll put those there for now. And you know what? Let's make them white. And I'm going to select the whole chart. And I want it in a different font, the Bond script. I've got to put these white again. And now we can kind of customize whatever we want here. For me, I'll show you the trick in a second, but let's say we want forwards to be, I don't know, forwards to be this color and defensemen to be, I don't know, I don't want the colors to be too bold. This color, and goalies are maybe, I don't know, this color. Let's go back to the way that we had it. Let's go that color, and this color. This is not the way that my charts are going to look, but I just want to show you an example of what I do, and then what it looks like on. This isn't what I do, but it's just something that we can do. I'm going to right click, format the chart area, and go to fill. And I don't want to fill for now. I'll show you what I generally do, or I'll actually do it now. Sometimes I like to do a solid fill. I like to fill it black, but make the transparency like 90 or so that there's a slight like gray tone to it, maybe even 95, kind of depends, so that it stands out. And for titles, oftentimes I don't like having a title here, but I like to include a shape in the chart, so I'll delete the title. And I'll drag this down a little bit. And if I have this chart selected, I can go to Insert, Illustrations. I can insert a shape if I want. Maybe it's this shape, or maybe it's this shape. It doesn't really matter. But let's try. Let's do this one. Now there's a shape, and I can't even move it outside the chart if I try to. It'll follow along with the chart. And let's put it here. And maybe I put it across the top. And I type in body weight. And you can just format this just like you would any other word, where if I go here, I'm going to put it in the middle. And if I go to the shape area, I can go to, I think it's the text options, and put it in the middle. And maybe I want this also to be the bond script or whatever. Make it 12, make it bold. And then I can color this whatever I want. And it can be any shape that you want. Maybe I want it to be gold, and I want the border of this shape to be black, and I want it to be kind of thick. Like I want it to be like kind of thick. And I need this text to be a little bit bigger. Maybe it's 14. Now, maybe I want the body weights to be just one number without a decimal. We can do that. And maybe this is good for me. And I'm just going to show you what this looks like. I can copy this chart. I just copied it. Go to my team plan. And let's pretend like if you click on view and click off grid lines, you'll get kind of a white background. I'll paste this chart in here. And I'll move over here. And this is from last time. Yeah, I don't need these anymore because you'll get that file with these. Now what I have is this is kind of how my chart will look. Maybe this is too thick, I don't know. And this is how it will look with a white background. But we created a chart, like I said, and now, so if you remember these numbers, and actually let's add some more decimals to these numbers for now, so that we can see how this works. Or the chart is here too. So I'm going to change these both to all, and I want you to pay attention to these numbers. Let's actually make these a little bit better, a little bit more in depth. So 192.00, doesn't do it. 195.69 and 191. Again, these are 0.00, so let's just write these down. Now, let's change some things in our team plan. If I go to my team plan, let's make this all. And actually, we could probably see this happen live right here. Put it here if you can see the numbers. Let's go to all. The numbers are changing. If I change this to all, numbers will change. And the same thing. If I go maybe the U16 group during all fitness sessions, again, well, that's probably a bad example because I don't have a U18 group, but I have a U20 group. So there we go. Things are going to change again. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. We did create a graph. Not going to use it, but we have a framework now for that. If we were to select a metric here, we could talk to our graph and say, I want the data pretty much for that metric. So I'll see you in the next video.